Live from Citizen TV, this is JKL with Jeff Koinange.
You know, if it's Wednesday, it's all about those three letters on the keyboard that follow each other. JKL. Thanks for joining us on this very first Wednesday in September. Tonight, a very emotional show, folks. That's right. Because imagine for a moment a mother whose son has been convicted and sentenced to death in a foreign country. That's what happened to Dorothy Kweyu's son, Steve-O, in Saudi Arabia, no less. He's been in jail for 13 years and recently was sentenced to death. However, there could be a little thread of hope because the family of the person he's accused of killing says, if Dorothy and her people can raise up to $1 million, ouch, $1 million, Steve-O will be set free. That's the bottom line. What does that say for us? Well, we'll talk about that. She's joined by her other son, Cyprian Amakalu. He's also in the house. And veteran journalist Ken Bosire, who's been on this story from day one. It's an emotional bench tonight. And I want you guys to listen carefully because we might call upon you to help out a brother. What do you say? Start tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE begins right now. Tonight.
If pending bills are more than the outstanding exchequer releases, then we have a problem of fiscal indiscipline.
Festival of plunder. Auditor General flags looting spree in counties with unauthorized multiple bank accounts.
We believe that this is just not any other murder. It is a murder that may have been linked with the procuring processes and the tendering processes.
Who killed Evans Chirchir? Mysterious death of a Treasury official after threats over a 285 million shilling tender. Raila AUC campaign. President Ruto meets 6 African heads of state in China.
I've been placed in a band that I don't know whether my parents will afford that.
Long wait for funding appeal. Agony of a first-year needy student who was placed in Band 4. And welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yulanzale. Now, the Auditor General has unearthed massive looting in counties through operation of multiple bank accounts that is used to siphon taxpayers' money. Now, while appearing before the Senate Special Funds Committee, chaired by Vihiga Senator Jeffrey Otsotsi, Auditor General Nancy Gathungu revealed that more counties illegally operated more than 200 bank accounts. Imagine that. Let's begin our broadcast with our very own Stephen Little.
In a 5-hour session with the Senate Committee on Special Funds, Auditor General Nancy Gathungu opened the lead on the new strategy devised by counties to hide stolen taxpayers' money. It emerged that some counties illegally hold up to 200 bank accounts used as a conduit to siphon taxpayers' money.
Or sometimes you'll find a dormant account in 1 year or for 2-3 years, and then suddenly it receives money. The money comes in and goes out. So we follow and we find, no, it was a vehicle to put aside. I think you also understand.
Are you trying to say a vehicle for eating?
It further emerged that the duplicate bank accounts are opened under several departments, but the money banked is channeled to other use.
We find that County X is doing the same number of services, but only running 10 accounts. County Y is running the same services and providing the same services for their counties, but has got 200 accounts.
It will depend on the situation, but more than 10, it's too much. So 300 don't make sense to me, or even 200.
I've seen so many audit queries related to that. Is this an area that you can consider prioritizing in terms of performance audit, so that we really find out where the problem is?
The Auditor General further told the Senate that some of those bank accounts are allocated millions of shillings and purports to pay for services under the national government's purview.
You've seen counties now have established bursaries, and they're giving bursaries to secondary schools, and I thought secondary schools education is under national government. So now you have a problem, and I'm very glad that we're having a national conversation now on affordable education and how to minimize all this.
Do you then recommend to this committee that we should look into amending the law, the PFM Act? I think it's section 116, if I'm not wrong, on setting up funds.
The Auditor General also raised issue on the onsource revenue by counties as another avenue for theft of public funds. Some counties are said to be under-declaring their revenue collections or targets. In the last Controller of Budget report, Kericho, Nyandarua, Machakos and Lamu counties were listed as counties that registered the lowest collection, falling below target. According to the Senate session, they either failed to submit all their collections to the Consolidated Fund or they set up an ambitious target. On the other hand, Uasin Gishu, Meru, Wajir and Narok counties exceeded their collection targets during the reporting period, with their collections matching their overall revenue targets.
Why is it that this year this agency collected 2 billion and this year it has gone to 1.6 billion with no explanation? Is it siphoning?
The pending bills headache also featured in the Senate session.
If pending bills are more than the outstanding exchequer releases, then you have a problem of fiscal indiscipline.
Suppliers are finding themselves in a whirlwind whereby, most of the projects are stalling, their own businesses are collapsing.
And if you did a good performance audit, then as a Senate, we'll be able to act on your report, and that would improve the way our counties receive money and the way approvals of expenditure is done.
Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
All right, Leto, thanks so much for that. In other news, the family of a National Treasury employee is seeking justice after the body of their kin was identified at the Machakos Level 5 hospital mortuary days after a reported meeting with his friends. Evans Chirchir worked in the procurement department with the family, fearing that he may have suffered for his cooperation, or rather his occupation. Let's get more from our very own Ode Francis.
It's a troubling week for the family of Evans Chirchir, an employee at the National Treasury. They say they last interacted with him as he left for a meeting with his friends last week. And when he didn't return home, they got concerned, starting off on a journey to find him. Their search ended at the Machakos Level 5 hospital mortuary.
The body was brought by Chumfi police officers. That's police officers from Chumfi police station, that's Mombasa Road junction. And the police officers recorded the body in our morgue and identified the body.
The distraught family made all efforts to find him, including filing a petition at the High Court in Nairobi to have his body produced.
Actually, we were here this morning trying to make an application for habeas corpus, production of Evans Chirchir's body, only to be informed by the family that he was found dead in Machakos.
The family fears that Chirchir's death may be linked to his work, citing a recent multi-million tender.
Because we believe that this is just not any other murder. It is a murder that may have been linked with the procuring processes and the tendering processes.
It was a tender, I think, of over sum of what, 180? 286 million. And Mr. Chirchir also raised those issues, and he informed his brother that his life was, that there were threats. His life was in danger and there were threats to his life. And all those issues revolve around the tendering process.
The alleged meeting of Chirchir with his friends turning to be a point of interest.
Before he died, there were some friends who summoned him and told him that they want to have a meeting with him at Machakos. And after that meeting, Evans Chirchir disappeared.
The family now wants the Directorate of Criminal Investigation to unravel the mystery, including finding out details of the alleged contract. An autopsy on Chirchir's body is scheduled for Thursday. Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, Ode, thanks so much for that. Now for news from further afield. And President William Ruto has met with 7 heads of state and government from Africa to drum up support for Raila Odinga's Africa Union Commission chairman bid. This as Kenya plans to embark on a continent-wide campaign with a focus on countries that lie in southern and western Africa. Let's get more from our very own Ayub Abdikadir.
Thank you very much.
The red carpet in Beijing, China offered President William Ruto with an opportunity to bolster Odinga's campaigns, doubling his diplomatic efforts.
You know our former Prime Minister? Yes.
A week since Odinga's official launch in Nairobi.
The Forum on China-Africa affords Honorable Odinga an opportunity to dive deeply into the critical issues that tie our 2 continents together. But aside from that, Ayub, of course, you're right, because these forums also afford Mr. Odinga an opportunity to interact with heads of states who are actually the voters during the session that will undertake the elections in February of next year.
The president and the former prime minister met several heads of state from Congo-Brazzaville, Guinea-Bissau, Togo, Chad, Mali, Zambia and Rwanda. In an apparent display of confidence, the government says the Anglophone-Francophone divide, a geopolitical fault line that experts say may characterize the election, is insignificant, banking on Odinga's political credentials to outweigh other candidates.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Odinga's bid is receiving enormous support from quite a number of so-called Francophone-speaking countries, because at the end of the day, what is controlling in candidatures and what is controlling in elections, just like in national politics, is interest.
It also says it has mapped out the continent, dividing it into regional blocks in the hunt for votes, in a diplomatic mission that will seek to project Odinga in his bid to operate from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Towards the end of next week, I will be convening the committee of candidature that brings together PSS from the East African region to make a decision and to endorse the candidature of Mr. Odinga as ESC in its entirety. And then we will roll out this campaign across the countries. The first layer of it obviously will reach out to critical countries that we have already mapped out, including especially SADC, which is the Southern Africa Development Corporation, as well as ECOWAS.
In the crucial vote set for February 2025, African heads of state and governments constitute the voters. And in his trip to China, President William Ruto is pulling all the stops, tagging along with the African Union Commission Chair, candidate Raila Odinga, in what is expected to be a vote-seeking lobby with African leaders assembled in Beijing. Ayub Abdikadir, Citizen TV.
All right, Ayub, thanks so much for that. Back home again. And students joining universities continue to grapple with financial challenges as they wait for the outcome of the appeals against their classification for funding. Now, thousands of students have lodged appeals against the bans that were placed in as the government reviewed the parameters for determining how students are funded for their higher education. Our very own Brenda Wanga reports on the uncertainty experienced by some of the students reporting to universities.
Across the country, the process of onboarding first-year students in universities is ongoing. Students have been trooping to the various institutions of higher learning. But even as they do so, the cloud of uncertainty over their finances hangs over their heads. Derek Okoth is one of the students who is unsure of what his education journey is going to look like. He came all the way from Homa Bay to join Kisii University. He is taking this journey alone. His father couldn't afford to pay for 2 bus tickets, a testament to his family's economic status. He has been placed in Band 4, an interpretation by the university funding mechanism that his family is relatively well off. He maintains that the opposite is true.
I've been placed in a band that I don't know whether my parents will afford that, because if you look at even there's no particular job that my parents are doing, because if you could see, I have my mom. My mom is also sick. My dad is just doing this. We call it in our language amal. Tianafanya hapo.
Ezra Kipyegon is facing a similar situation. He too has been placed in Band 4 and he says he doesn't know how he will raise the household fees.
Naona hiyo ni iko juu sana. Kwa sababu familia yetu iko chini, kwa mzae ana kazi.
The families of these 2 students are just a small fraction of those who have complained of being misplaced for financial aid from government. The Ministry of Education has opened up the portals for appeals.
Over 12,000, slightly over. Okay. But as Ndegwa would tell you, some of the students had not provided the right information and they were served immediately.
These 2 have lodged their appeals and are waiting for the results, hoping that the review will be favorable to them.
I think this issue of appealing, they should take it into a serious notice, because most of the students, not me only, there are several students, they are just complaining of the same thing.
While the universities appear to be adhering to the government directive that no student should be locked out on account of non-payment of household contributions, some of the students say they are still in the dark about their loan allocations and how they will survive before the resources are released.
Kwa sasa shida ni ile tu hatujajua feedback kuhusu maneno ya health.
Students and their families have critiqued the student-centered funding model, stating it is placing higher education out of reach of the most vulnerable, while the government defends it, stating that it levels the ground and enables families to shoulder the burden according to their financial strengths. University students have threatened to go to the streets to protest against the model next week. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
All right, Brenda, thanks so much for that. Now, some sad news here. Families of 4 victims who were murdered and their bodies dumped at a quarry in Pipeline area in Nairobi can now find a bit of closure. This after DNA results positively identified 4 out of the 17 bodies recovered in July. The 4 bodies have been returned to their families, while forensic investigations continue to identify the remaining victims. The families of the identified victims are now seeking financial assistance from the government to help with the burial arrangements. We get more from our very own Ben Kirui.
The families of Kenyans murdered and dumped at the quarry dump site gathered at the city mortuary to receive the DNA results. The identification process, which began shortly after the bodies were recovered in July, positively identified 4 of the 17 bodies.
Jana tukapigiwa simu, kaenda kwa DCI tukuje kutukonfirm, na tumekuja leo tumeona Rosemary.
Tulikuja leo asubuhi kuconfirm hiyo body na tumepata iko complete.
Good news, sasa the whole body parts zimematch, the upper part and the lower part zimematch. Sasa ni siku tu ya mazishi ndio imebaki.
Many of the bodies were dismembered, with some limbs amputated from the knees downwards. The family of one victim, Rosemary Achieng, saying that their loved one's body was found in a distressing state.
Pati ya juu kutoka kwa magoti kwenda juu ni nusu, alafu hizo zingine za chini ziko kando.
The 4 identified bodies have been released to their families for burial. However, The families have requested financial assistance from the government to cover mortuary fees and burial expenses, as they are unable to bear the costs on their own.
Bill, it's too high. We can't manage to make it because kufikia jana it was more than 45,000. So the more itakaa, the more itazidi kuongezeka.
Human rights activists have criticized the government, alleging attempts to cover up by suspending the retrieval exercise at the Kware dump site. They also claim that there are plans to dispose of the remaining unidentified bodies.
The first question that everyone is asking, why have they suspended the retrieval of bodies from the quarry?
And I dare say it's also quite unfortunate that we now see that the Nairobi County Council wants to dispose of the bodies that are at the city mortuary before identification, because we never know if these are part of the bodies that may end up being disposed. And so as the Law Society, we are urging the courts to remember that they must protect the people of Kenya.
The identification process for the remaining 13 bodies is ongoing through forensic examination. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, Ben, thanks so much for that. Still on some more sad news. And families of the victims who died in the Tuesday horror crash at Pangala along the Londiani-Mohoroni Road are grappling with the sudden loss of their loved ones. The families who had camped at St. Vincent Mission Hospital morgue to identify the bodies of their loved ones recalled the last moments they shared with their kin, most of whom were students heading back to school. Let's get more from our very own Laura Otieno.
A heavy air of grief hung over Our Lady of Mercy morgue in Mohoroni, Kisumu County. Families are yet to come to terms with the untimely deaths of their kin. Josh Otieno lost his wife and his 17-year-old daughter. What was to be a normal back-to-school journey turned tragic barely 20 minutes after he saw them off by the roadside.
They wanted to board another vehicle, which was not that one. But those one insisted. The conductor insisted that they must board that vehicle to Kisumu. So we talked some few minutes after boarding the vehicle. And then after that, I only got a phone from my brother, from my son, that both of them have died.
More families also shared a similar tale of having lost their relatives barely an hour after wishing them journey masses. Peter Okumu lost his daughter, whom he had taken to board the ill-fated vehicle as she made her way back to Ugunja Vocational Center to sit for her final exam.
Jana yangu akanipigia, watu hakuna hapa na hata hiyo nika kuna hapa. Baba, hebu kuja tuende huko mahali tunasikia ajali imefanyika. Nikakuja tu mbio. Na tukakuja hapa, yani nikauliza wakaniambia watu nini wamesaletwa hapa St. Vincent.
Residents have decried the poor state of the Mohoroni-Londiani Road, where an untarmac stretch on the busy highway has claimed scores of lives in the recent past.
So we want to plead with the government, the national government particularly, to ensure that the road is properly repaired. Because we are wondering how many lives must we lose for the short stretch of about 5 kilometers just to be repaired.
Sehemu zingine ukienda mabarabara haiwezi kuwa shida ya lam. Hata ingawa wanasema lori ili lose control. Inge lose control na ikikuwa side yake, hiyo ajali ingetokezea.
Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
Such a sad story there. News from around the counties, and the Council of Governors has rejected a proposal to reduce the county's shareable revenue from 400 billion shillings to 380 billion shillings, warning it would cripple county operations. Now, COG chairperson Anne Waiguru stating that the counties are already struggling with the current funding and growing development needs and activation for higher pay by county workers. Now, this comes as county workers from all 47 counties are threatening to strike over their exclusion from the second phase of public service salary increments. Let's get more from our very own Willie Lusige.
Even as insufficient funding and the frequent late disbursement of funds threaten to cripple operations within most of the counties, a decision by Treasury to further cut the shareable revenue to the devolved units from the initially agreed 400 billion shillings to Kenya shillings 380 billion is likely to complicate the already bad situation and hamper service deliveries. According to the Council of Governors chairperson Anne Waigoro, counties have been struggling with the allocated funds, especially with increasing development needs and even increasing agitation for better pay by the employees. She warned that any reduction in the approved amount will create a serious ripple effect on county operations.
Tukifanya hivyo kutakuwa na huge problem of disparity in the counties. Yani county hazitaweza kutimiza ahadi zao kwa wananchi.
Waiguru said that the proposal to reduce the allocation to Kenya shillings 380 billion below last year's baseline of Kenya shillings 385 billion will be a setback for devolution, undermining the progress that has been made.
The bottom line, it should be at the 400 billion ambayo ilikuwa minimum ya kufanya minimum basic services.
Governors have also warned of an impending halt in county operations and the likelihood of widespread industrial action if counties are not adequately funded.
Tukipunguzwa pesa kutoka 385 na tuongezewe kazi ambayo tunafaa kufanya na hiyo pesa. Hiyo pesa itatoka wapi ama ni kusema tufunge counties? Solidarity forever.
This warning comes at a time when over 13,000 county workers from all 47 counties have threatened to strike due to the exclusion from the second phase of salary increments for public service officers.
There's always a caveat. Local governments, county governments can wait. And the public is important. They know it is out of this frustration that we'll have to go to the streets.
They have given the government a 21-day notice to address all their demands or they will cease work. Willie Lusige, Citizen TV.
For the union makes us strong.
All right, and in other news, some good news for this network. Citizen TV has yet again been voted the most admired media brand in Kenya. Now, Royal Media Services, as an organization, emerged second in the same category of most admired media brands in the country. The announcements were made during the 14th annual Brand Africa 100 event held right here in the nation's capital. Let's get more from our very own Emily Jabet.
Your favorite TV station, Citizen TV, continues to top the Kenyan market.
Citizen.
This is based on the latest survey on the most admired brands in the country. Citizen TV and Royal Media Services led in the media brand category, while Safaricom emerged winner in the telecommunications category. The research that recognizes brands' reputation and competitiveness was announced in Nairobi last evening.
We are very happy and very excited that Citizen TV has been acknowledged and celebrated by the viewers as Kenya's most admired media brand. And we'd just like to say thank you so much to the 20 million Kenyans that watch and interact with us every day.
I would like to thank the Royal Media Services and all their 1,000+ staff who work tirelessly to help us achieve this accomplishment. Thank you for making us number one.
According to Thibe Kalafang, founder and chairman Brand Africa, the results of the rankings demonstrate the diversity and complexity of the Kenyan market and the strength of the local brands, which drives its economy and identity.
Congratulations on Citizen for being named by Kenyans as the #1 most admired brand in Kenya. I think it's a phenomenal achievement. There's a very competitive marketplace for media, and for you to come out on top speaks to your credibility, speak to your connectedness, and speak to your innovations as a media brand.
The importance of brands cannot be underrated. Foreign direct investment,
a lot of it is created when we have strong brands. And country branding is important, made in Kenya or made in Africa. And we should be very proud of what we have on the continent and in the country. So I'm very proud of everybody that got an award today. And I'm excited to see the ones that we will have next year and that we can inspire to actually create strong brands.
In a new category that determined the most admired country that contributes to a better Africa, Kenyans ranked Kenya as the #1 country. South Africa, USA, Rwanda and Tanzania make up the rest of the top 5. The study revealed that while 56% of Kenyans believe in Africa, only 26 of their most admired brands are made in Africa, with Kenya accounting for 23% of the top 100. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV.
Oh, man, fantastic. And by the way, this is what it looks like right here. It says, most admired media brand in Kenya. Congratulations to everyone here, not only at Citizen TV, but at the Royal Media Services. Fantastic. Well done. Let's keep going. On that note, let's take our first break here on Jeff. It is exactly 40 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live here at Citizen Television. Now, in a bid to address exam cheating, the Teachers Service Commission has updated its criteria for the selection of center managers, supervisors and invigilators for the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education exam and the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment. Now, in readiness for the national exams, which take place between the 18th of October and the 22nd of November, the TSC has invited the sub-county directors to nominate teachers who will be involved in their administration and management. Now, KCSC rehearsals will be held on the 18th of October, with the exams set to begin on the 22nd of October for a month. Now, meanwhile, the rehearsals for the KEPSEA will be held on the 25th of October, together with those of the Kenya Intermediate Learner Education Assessment, which will begin on the 28th of October. Now, in measures to curb exam cheating, the sub-county directors have been instructed to nominate center managers, supervisors and invigilators of high integrity. They've also been advised that supervisors and invigilators should not be deployed in a center they have served in the last 2 consecutive years. KCSC supervisors will also be rotated on a weekly basis. At the same time, news of the violent attack of Ugandan athlete Rebecca Cheptegei that left her with serious injuries have been met with condemnation. Athletics Kenya President retired General Jackson Tuwei now says the Federation will not condone any violence meted against athletes. Now, speaking in the aftermath of the attacks against the Ugandan athlete, the Athletics Kenya leadership reiterated that the current safeguarding policy will protect athletes and vulnerable adults involved in sports from harassment, harm, or abuse.
The kind of things that we are seeing, we have seen them in the past. It's a very sad situation. Let us pray for that lady, for that athlete, for that marathoner who had done extremely well, and she was looking forward to doing even better in the future. What does safeguarding mean? It means you create a safe and happy environment. Now, that environment that she went through is definitely not a very happy one, and that is why we are condemning this particular issue.
At the same time, outgoing Cooperatives Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui has handed over to the incoming Cabinet Secretary Wycliffe Oparanya at the Cooperatives and MSMEs Development. Now, during the handover ceremony, Chelugui challenged Oparanya to lobby for the development of the function of retail and policy to the Ministry of Cooperatives and Retail and MSMEs, which, he says, remained in the Trade Ministry when the MSMEs function was hived off. Chelugui also asked his successor to keep a keen eye on the ongoing coffee reforms, warning of various interests that threaten to cripple the reforms. Chelugui, who took time to espouse his achievements at the helm of the ministry, says the docket is one that directly impacts the country's GDP.
The department can actually be grouped together with the role and policy role of retail and wholesale, because this is the right home for that function. That we give our minister the necessary support to be able to champion, to pick from where we have left. I have done my bit.
I want to assure you that we shall start where you left. And I can tell you that the many people I've met, whom we have interacted with, have really thanked you for the work that you have done in this ministry. You have actually also started the Hustler Fund. You know, when I was the other side, I was telling people not to pay the Hustler Fund. Now I'm here saying that they should pay for obvious reasons.
All right, listen to this story. A 22-year-old political science student from Homa Bay is now a millionaire after winning $1 million shillings with the Jipange na Viusasa campaign. Lydia Akinyi Otieno, a student at Catholic University, is the youngest winner so far. Lydia says she will use her earnings to clear her school fees and start a small business. Her namesake, Lydia Nyaboke from Kisii, also received 50,000 shillings in winnings. Now, there's 50,000 shillings up for grab every single day and $1 million shillings at the end of the week for those who take part in the Jipange na Viusasa promotion, with a grand prize of 3 million shillings. Now, all you need to do is simply dial star 487 star 3 hash. Again, star 487 star 3 hash, and be advised that you will not be asked for money before you can receive your winnings. Congratulations to all winners.
Wow.
Coming up, farmers taking up contract farming in a bid to eliminate middlemen to empower smallholder farmers. It is exactly 54 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Jeff Koinange live here at Citizen Television. On to business news. And shareholders in the Kenya Green building space have urged the government to incentivize the sector to attract capital into the country. Now, speaking during the opening of the two-day expo in Nairobi, sector players highlighted the lack of regulatory frameworks to compel the construction center to incorporate green elements in construction as a major hindrance. And as the very own Jimmy Mbogo reports now, the sector is seeking to lobby for policies that will incentivize investment into the sector to unlock the inclusive capital from financial institutions. Take a listen.
We talked about the physical planning laws.
As the world focuses on alternate ways of lowering carbon emission, players in the green building ecosystem are seeking to fast-track their contribution by pushing for policy changes to enhance the uptake of eco-friendly housing. Speaking in Nairobi during the opening of a two-day sustainability conference for the building environmental sector, players noted that the construction value chain is responsible for 40% of energy and industrial-related carbon dioxide emission globally. This is projected to increase by an additional 13% in the next decade if nothing changes. It is this emission that the Kenya Green Building Society and other partners are seeking to reduce.
So until we're clear on the incentives we're giving, if there's no requirement, there needs to be an incentive. So we need to have very clearly defined incentives if our market is not mandatory to get things moving forward. And that means then we need to understand how banks will be willing to now probably give preferential loans for green projects. Similarly, is there some sort of waiver in the turnaround time when it comes to approvals?
The government on its part has committed to incorporate more green buildings in the construction of the ongoing affordable housing project projects, with the pilot phase of 400 units in Homa Bay County set to be complete within the year. According to Mary Potter, the International Finance Corporation Regional Director, the need for green affordable housing on the continent is expected to grow, with 45% of the continent's population already living in urban centers.
It's within this context that IFC is stepping up its work with partners in Kenya to support the expansion of green and affordable housing. We are in the process of developing a new project in partnership with the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development and other stakeholders to support the development of green building standards.
There will be a progressive embracing of the green construction concept. One of the key things on green construction is the water conservation, energy efficiency, and as well as what we can call zero carbon emission materials. Those are the key focus areas, and as long as we're able to focus on that, then we are now toward the journey of green construction concepts.
With the recently launched National Building Code set to take effect by March 2025, the government is optimistic that this will help onboard all new building technologies and offer the scope to measure compliance. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, Jimmy, thanks so much for that. At the same time, the British High Commission, in partnership with the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the KNCCI, and the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KAM, has provided a $540,000 grant to support Kenyan SMEs. Now, the grant will help 210 women and youth-owned SMEs to leverage opportunities in the African Continental Free Trade Area. The initiative will seek to address challenges such as high operational costs, limited market access, and difficulties accessing credit, with education to SMEs on AFCTA provisions and export opportunities. Take a listen.
Chambers provide services such as...
Now, with a growing demand for safe and sustainably produced food worldwide, contract farming is gaining traction as a solution that benefits both farmers and companies that are in the food supply chain. However, this farming method has its own fair share of challenges, key among them being the pricing of the farm produce. On this week's Smart Farm, our very own Dennis Otieno traveled to Makueni County to meet a poultry farmer who has successfully embraced this farming model. Take a listen.
Clad in a white dust coat, jeans and black gumboots, Josephine Mwania monitors activities at a poultry farm located in Makueni County. She picks up one of the birds in an attempt to determine its weight. Mwania is one of the farmers in this area who is rearing broiler chicken under contract farming.
Poultry farming is very sensitive, but as I've said, in Makueni, the climate is very conducive for broiler farming particularly, because we do not get challenges of cold weather as such, and therefore we are able to have our birds ready in the shortest time possible, actually sometimes within 31 days. But there are times we are struck by diseases, but we have been training so that we get the biosecurity measures that we are supposed to employ.
Contract farming refers to an agricultural production carried out according to an agreement between a farmer or producer and a buyer. Over a decade ago, Mwania started off with a few hundred birds. Today, she has managed to maintain a staggering 24,000 birds in her farm. One of the biggest challenges for many poultry farmers is finding a consistent market for their produce. And that, according to Mwania, is where the contract farming model came in handy.
If you were to look for market in Nairobi, which is the biggest consumer for poultry, or Mombasa, that would really be costly. So the assurance of a ready market, because our contract buyers, or the company that we have entered into a contract with, they come for the birds right from the farm. That makes it easy for us.
Under the contract Mwania has secured with a local farm, she is offered chicks and feeds. To ensure the contract becomes effective, a farmer has to sign a legally binding contract. In some jurisdictions, some contracts are signed by area chiefs and officials from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Although freelance farming may also make a farmer go with the prices when the prices go high, one may look at how much they fetch. I believe the losses and also the technical advice from the companies that give us the contract is a long way to go in success in the poultry farming, and also the way we keep the birds, because every week we have a vet coming to see how we are doing and giving us the help that we need to make sure we do it right. Without considering the houses and the equipment, which came first as a capital investment, 20,000 has cost us 7 million and 300.
Managing such a large flock is no small feat. Cedric Mashira, the farm manager, talks about the strategies they use to keep operations running smoothly.
Sasa tukiwa na kuku atuletang cashews wa kufanya kazi, tunakuanga tumesettle mambo ya shamba before placement. Juu ni wakati mchache, although tuko na watu wengine kwa shamba. Kitu kingine, we normally use hizi disinfectants pale kwa mlango. Hiyo inasaidia, tuna change every time ndio wale wa wanaitangwa vini au hizi virusi wasikuwe available.
Contracts bind farmers to supplying an agreed number of their produce. Hence, it is important for all parties to honor their end of the deal. But contract farming in Kenya is yet to fully win the hearts of most small-scale farmers, many of whom are still trapped under the mercy of middlemen. It is against this backdrop that key stakeholders are organizing the International Conference on Contract Farming, a forum that will tackle opportunities and challenges faced by farmers in contract farming.
I think contract farming can work. It should work. There are some difficulties and challenges, and I hope it does work, because I think for other providers like finance providers, insurance providers, when there's a buyer at the end, it really, really helps. And I think following on from that, anything I think that brings different stakeholders together, networking, talking, having good conversations, understanding each other's perspective, i.e. from the farmer's perspective, the buyer's perspective, the transport, the logistics, government in terms of regulations, I think is a good thing. Let's try and do interactive things. Let's try and really get discussions going. Let's try and have some action points that can be taken forward.
But it is not all a smooth sailing affair. Farmers face the risks of both market failure and production problems when growing new crops. They may also be exploited by rogue sponsors who may become unreliable. Dennis Otieno, Smart Farm.
All right, from business to sports. And the Nairobi City Marathon is targeting 15,000 participants for the 2024 edition to be held this coming Sunday, the 8th of September. Now, this is a new date, as the original date of the 7th of July was disrupted by demonstrations in Nairobi and other parts of the country. Now, ahead of the 10,500 people have so far registered, with the 10-kilometer race attracting the most number of competitors, that is 4,278. Now, registration will remain open until Saturday the 7th, but will close as soon as 15,000 people have registered. The full marathon will start at 6:45 a.m. and will use the entire length of the Nairobi Expressway all the way to Westlands and the JKIA turnoff on Mombasa Road. Now, the start has been moved from Aerodrome Road to Mombasa Road outside the Nyayo National Stadium. The winners of the marathon will fully be sponsored, and the Ministry of Sports say they will walk away with a cool prize of 3.5 million shillings each, both the men and the women.
The rest are from very many countries.
We are monetizing talent, right? We have nurtured through the camps that we have in this country. We have identified from the same camps around the country the talents. Now it is an opportunity for us to be able to give them money, monetizing the talent.
All right, from athletics to football, and national football team Harambee Stars captain Michael Olunga will miss the Africa Cup of Nations qualifying matches against Zimbabwe and Namibia due to an injury. Olunga could not recover in time to pass a late fitness test ahead of the first match against Zimbabwe on Friday at the Mandela Stadium in Kampala in Uganda. Now, the camp in Uganda is now house full after the arrival of defender Joseph Okumu, as well as midfielder Timothy Otieno. Harambee Stars is playing their home match against Zimbabwe in Kampala as Kenya lacks a CAF-approved stadium to host the qualifiers. Harambee Stars will have an open training session on Thursday evening before their match on Friday, and the team will head to Johannesburg in South Africa to play Namibia in the second qualifier next Tuesday. Namibia also doesn't have a CAF-approved stadium and will host Harambee Stars at the Orlando Stadium, home of the Orlando Pirates in Johannesburg. Now, Samson Otieno saved the Kenya Paralympics team's blushes by winning a silver medal in the men's long jump event at the Stade de France in Paris. Ojuka's 6.20 meters was second best to gold medalist Brian Leonel from Argentina, who jumped 6.42 meters. Take a look at those highlights. That is clearly not the Paralympics. That looks like rugby right there, but let's carry on. Mombasa Sports Club will host the 5th round of the 2024 National Sevens Circuit, the Driftwood Sevens, on this coming weekend, September 7th and 8th. Now, this is the penultimate round of the circuit that will conclude with the Nakuru's Driftwood Sevens on September the 14th and the 15th. Kababeri Sevens winners, KCB RFC, are top seeds in Mombasa in Pool A. That also includes Masinde Muliro University, Kenyatta University's Black Blood, and the hosts Mombasa RFC. In Pool B, last year's Driftwood Sevens finalists, Menengai Oilers, play Daystar Falcons, Nondescript RFC, and Tomb Marines from Mombasa. Circuit leaders Kenya Harlequins RFC are in Pool C alongside Cabras RFC, who are second in the standings. Nakuru RFC and Mwamba RFC are in Pool D, with Catholic Monks, Strathmore Leos, Zetec Oaks, and Stallions Rugby.